What's up, everybody? It's Friday night. Woo! The only show on Friday night that's 95% proof. So, anyway, we got a good show. I'm looking forward to it tonight. And I want everyone to sound off. Let me know who's here and what you're drinking. If you're drinking, you don't have to, but we encourage it because it is a bar. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go over the rules. I'm going to put up my special rules banner. There it is. And go over the rules real quick. Number one, you are welcome to ask any paranormal related questions because usually, this is a paranormal kind of skeptic show. But I will give you my opinion. And then the guest, which I have a guest tonight. Oh my God, that's 3 in a row. The guest tonight will also answer your questions. So please don't hesitate to field questions towards him. Number 2 is I don't know everything. Most of us don't. So it's okay if we don't know. We can look stuff up. We can speculate. I can write it down on my handy post-it notepad here and look it up later and get back to you. Rule number 3 is listen to Patrick Swayze. Be nice. Don't be a dick. This is for open conversation between people from different backgrounds and just coming together to have a conversation. So that's what it's all about. And we learn something. That's the point. Number 4 is when you have questions for either myself or the guest, please do me a favor. Just put the letter Q or the word question before it. That way it's easier for me to go through the comments and find your questions and put them up there and I can get to them quicker. And number 5, most important rule, drink up. So with that said, let me see who's here. We got, Tommy. What's up, Tommy? From YouTube. Rob Palmer is in the house. Hello, Rob. Nice to see you. JD, Diane, and I know there's a few more out there. But anyway, let me get right to it. My guest tonight is Russ Dobler. He is a geophysicist, a journalist, and the board member, and I believe president of the New York City Skeptics. He's going to correct me when he comes on. He edits the science and skepticism section for the pop culture website Adventures in Poor Taste Comics, which is a cool site. It really is cool. It blends science and comics. I mean, how cool is that? So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm going to let him come on and talk about himself, and then we're going to get right into what's going on here. Hey, Russ. Let me unmute your mic there. There you go. What's up, buddy?
Kenny, cheers to you.
Cheers, sir.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. Always good to talk to you.
Always fun. Always fun. I like when we get together and talk because it's always we talk shop,
Yeah.
and the few times we've actually gotten together in person. We got together. I think we met at SciCon, right?
Yeah, that might have been the only in person.
I think so. The rest
How
of the
weird
times
is
have
that?
been virtual.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was even in the before times. I don't know. We're just
Yeah.
lazy.
Yeah. But it's cool. I mean, we got, who else we got? Oh, Carol. Carol's here experimenting with YouTube. Nice.
Palmer is only here because he wants to know when his article is publishing. I promise you that.
I'm sure it's going to come up. I love Rob. So,
All right.
my first question for you,
Mm-hmm.
Russ, is what the hell is a geophysicist?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I knew, maybe I'd still be in academia. I don't know. So I really got into science in high school.
Okay.
And it was actually, believe it or not, my interest in weird stuff that got me there. We can talk a little bit about that later if you want. But
awesome.
So basically I kind of had to pick something. I liked physics and I liked biology. And it didn't really seem like I could do both. So I was like, all right, hell with it. I guess I'll do something physics related. And so basically, I went to a state school in New York called Geneseo, which is near Rochester. And they had a really good program, a really hard-ass program. And geophysics degree was basically, it was almost a double major of geology and physics. It was... they just left out a couple physics classes, a couple math classes, and there were a couple geology electives I didn't have to take. Otherwise, it was the meat of both of them. I got through it somehow. But The further along I got, though, the more I was like, I don't know, this math is kind of hard. Then I went to grad school and drank too much in Boston. I got all my classes done, but the thesis just kind of sat. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to work.
Right.
And that's what I did. And I actually located utilities for a long time. For some reason, it still said geophysicist on my business card. Go figure. Because I did use fancy electromagnetic instruments. Actually, did you see my talk at New York Skeptic Camp?
Yes.
About GPR. Yeah. So that was a crossover between my old career and current interests. Nice. I got a nice office job now, so no more baking in the sun or trudging through the snow.
So what about this weird stuff? What's the weird stuff that you mentioned?
Oh yeah. So I didn't realize until I started talking to more, people in the community, that this is apparently a pretty common story. Like when I was a kid, well, first of all, I was into ghosts because as a kid, I was born in 1980. So Ghostbusters was right around my very formative years.
Right.
Apparently I thought it was a documentary because I really loved ghosts. Like I read all those little kiddie books, about ghosts, and I Borley Rectory and the Seaford Poltergeist and this and that and all of it. And I just loved it. And at some point I kind of transitioned into UFOs, and the ghost stuff was always there in the background, and the cryptid stuff was kind of cool, but I was really into UFOs. And this is the funny part. The thing that put me on the path towards science and skepticism was a UFO book. I don't know if you remember, he doesn't do a whole lot anymore. It was a French guy named Jacques Vallée. He had a series of books, and he was, to me, as a believer and stuff, he seemed skeptical because he didn't think that, he thought there were beings behind the UFO phenomenon, but they weren't extraterrestrial because that's just dumb. You can't travel through space. It's too far. He thought they were interdimensional, whatever that means. They came from another universe or something, passed through a membrane into our world. I don't know. But he would like, the way we may sometimes snicker at, ET believers, he did the same thing. He thought he was so much smarter than them. And he had this great story in Revelations, which was the end of a trilogy of books he did. That where he was talking to some people who were all into the underground alien base stuff, like Dulce and all that. I think it was specifically talking to them about Dulce, and they were like, they were just like, well, what are the aliens doing down there, and blah blah blah, and without really thinking about the implications of the thing actually existing.
Right.
And Vallée asked him, he just kind of broke into the conversation and said, big alien base, right? Like size of Rhode Island underneath the desert. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Who takes out the garbage? And they were all like, huh? And he's like, someplace that big, it's going to make a lot of waste. What are they doing? Storing it underground? Somebody's got to come out at some point and do something with it. Nobody's ever seen this.
Right.
This was probably like 80s. Like even clunky weather satellites could have detected something that large, that busy under the surface in an empty area. He's like, why can't the weathermen see this? And, and they were like, why are you asking stupid questions? We need to talk about what the aliens are up to. And he was like, all right, bye. And that was a real, no pun intended, revelation for me. Because I was like, why did I never think to ask that question?
Right.
And, I was 14 or 15. But people said I was a smart kid. So I felt kind of embarrassed that I had never thought to ask these questions. And I was like, in UFO books and ghost books, they always tell you they always try to make you believe that eyewitness testimony is so good. Like, why would they lie? How could they? This is an Air Force pilot. He couldn't have been mistaken. And I really bought into that. So I was like, well, now I don't know what to think. Like, how do I know what's true? How do I know what's good evidence and what's not? And, first, like I said, I'm an old guy. I'm an old fart at this point. Not to mention that I grew up in the mountains in upstate New York, so we were already like 10 years behind everything. So by the time in like 94 ish, I picked up Carl Sagan's Cosmos in my school library, and started reading that, and that was it. I mean, that just put me on the path, and I was like, oh, this is how you know what questions to ask. This is how you parse good evidence from bad. Yeah. And it was just like, it wasn't like, I mean, it was kind of disappointing because I wanted to believe in all these things, but at the same time, I was like, this is so much more satisfying.
Right. I hear you. I mean, that's the way I used to be, because I was a ghost hunter for so long. Like, I grew up with this stuff, loved it. I watched all the TV shows growing up, In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries, when it was good. And they were our shows because we stayed up for them because you couldn't record them. You had to watch them when they were aired. And then the X-Files came along and just spurred me even more. Loved it. And I went out ghost hunting, and I loved the thrill. But then sometimes, and I'm pretty sure it was Ben Radford, that jackass, who I love.
Joy killer.
But, asked a simple question like that, like garbage. If this big UFO base or whatever, where's the garbage going? These are little questions where once you hear it, you're like, fuck. Why didn't I think of that? Why?
Exactly.
Holy shit. You're right. Where's their garbage? Where's their waste?
Where are all these undocumented workers? Where do they how do they get in? How do they punch in the morning? Is it like the Bat Cave in 60s Batman? Does the wall open up? How does nobody see this?
So once you started down that path, I mean, that was obviously the thing that like flipped the switch on you, like clicked in the head.
It was I won't say it opened the floodgates, but it cracked the door, and it just went from there.
Yeah, same with me, because once you get that idea, like, oh shit, like, what else is not what I thought it was?
I've been thinking about it lately, and I think it was honestly a good almost decade before I completely transitioned, before like I gave up on the last thing. Right. I think I was I think I can blame, if I can blame Jacques Vallée for putting me on the path. I think, believe it or not, I think Daniel Loxton is the one who finished it off, because I was reading Junior Skeptic on the can, I think.
Yeah.
And he had an article about Loch Ness. And so like the cryptids I held on to for a while because I didn't really understand ecology, and it seems less fantastic. Like, it's an animal, of course. What's right? What's up? People see an animal. It's not a bear, for Bigfoot or whatever. Again, I didn't really still completely understand the things about perception and whatever.
Right.
So those were the last things I held on to, and then I read a Junior Skeptic Daniel Loxton did about Loch Ness and how they had imaged the whole loch with sonar, and I was like, "Fuck, really, man? You're gonna take that from me?" So I've got nothing left. You just took it up. All right, fine.
Yeah, one by one, they kind of tumbled. The icons, the pillars of the mysterious world, kind of fell. But it's not a bad thing.
No. I mean, like I said, it was a little bit of a sting, a little bit of a twist of the knife at first.
Right.
But at the same time, I always say knowing is better than not knowing, because you can't make good decisions if you don't know what's going on. And truth is beauty, beauty is truth, et cetera, et cetera.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I'm not even drunk yet.
So, all right. So from here, let's just explore your evolution, your path to where you are now. So after this revelation, what came next? What in your skeptical life?
Well, path? I mean, again, a lot of alcohol came next for a while.
I approve this message.
So when I was when I got into science, got interested in science, wanted to do science, I was like, okay, I can dedicate my life to this, and this is something I want to, I was like, I don't know, maybe idealistic was a good word for it. Stupid might be another one. I was like, I'm gonna do this thing, and I've got ambition, and I'm going to do good things for the world. And then, like I said, I got a little wild in college and grad school, and I was like, you know what? I'm good just living for a while. This is having friends, going out, tipping a few back. This is pretty fun. This is good. I can maintain with this. And then talking about blaming people, I blame my wife. I'll tell you what, because
is she watching?
She can probably hear me, right?
Okay.
She knows the story. I've told her many times that she's to blame for all this. I said, so she started going back to school 2012-ish, 2013, something like that. And went back and got her degree. And at that point I was like, well, what the hell? So now I'm the only lump in the family. Like, I'm not, well, now I feel bad, I all right, fine. I guess I got to go do something now. And that kind of rekindled, again, kind of slowly rekindled the ambition. And I was comfortable. I had a good career. We were living together, had the house. So all those baseline things were taken care of.
Right.
And I could kind of flex a little bit. And I was like, you know what? Science journalism is really bad. And I've always been better with words than numbers. In fact, again, to give you a clue into my educational history, when I first went to college and went and did the orientation with one of the geology professors, he looked at my SAT scores. My SAT scores are not bad by any stretch. They're pretty good. But there's a big disparity between the math and the verbal, or excuse me, the math and the verbal.
Yeah.
And he looked at my scores and looked back at me and said, "You sure you want to get into science?" And I guess I didn't really understand the full implications of what he was saying at the time. And I was like, yeah, I love it. And it's still good that I went through it, because if you're going to be a communicator, you really should have the background in this sort of stuff.
Right.
It really heads off a lot of questions before you have to go look them up. So I went to I did a journalism certificate program with UMass Amherst. It was all online, but it was pretty hardcore. Like, you had to go out and interview people and act, do real journalism and write some short form stuff and some long form stuff. With real research and tons of interviews. I went all over the place talking to people. And so after I did that, I tried to do some straight journalism here and there. And, obviously I knew this going in, but it's especially now more than ever, it's super competitive and
right.
There's no money in it.
Yeah.
And I was never going to make a career out of it. I pretty much knew that going in. So then I just kind of started doing fun stuff. I had my own blog where I would, which actually just shut down recently because I didn't want to pay for it anymore. But all the good stuff is somewhere else by now. I was just trying to, tell better stories and get things to relate to people better without at the same time making it as fluffy as a lot of science journalism you see. I was just kind of trying to figure things out. And I happened to write one thing that was about actually, I just posted it on AIPT recently. I rescued it, as I said, about regeneration in Marvel Comics, like Deadpool and Wolverine, and how they might compare to like salamanders, and could we ever do it in real life and things like that. And I had put it in my my profile, my signature of a message board, and one of the guys from AIPT saw it and said, "Hey, do you want to come write for us?" And I was like, "All right." I was kind of like quizzical at first because I wasn't like full on back into geekdom yet, so I was like, I don't know if I want to write about comics all the time. But eventually they kept getting bigger. They kept getting a bigger audience, and once they started to get serious, I started to get serious, and they said, let's see how far we can go with this.
So what is this? You talk about AIPT, Adventures in Poor Taste website. So what kind of website is this?
Well, it's gone through a lot of name changes. It was originally, like you said, Adventures in Poor Taste ! when the guy who founded it, well, the guy who found me and his friend started it in like 2009. It was just a blog, just two buddies doing a blog. And then eventually somebody came on and do comic reviews. And then, it just kind of built from there. Eventually, like some of the smaller publishers said, hey, I like what you guys do. Do you want to review our stuff? And it just kind of built from there. Marvel started giving us, like the stuff they really wanted eyes on every week.
Right.
They'd give us like 3 titles a week. And then they started giving us everything. And then DC came in and we started attracting more people to write. And it just snowballed. At the height, we were getting like almost 500,000 unique views a month, which is pretty good, about as good as it gets for an independent site of that genre.
Okay.
If you're not corporately owned by CBR or like CBR
Right.
is, or Newsarama or Games Radar, excuse me. Yeah, and I'd always try to do like science and comics, science and movies, whatever. And it's kind of a reciprocal relationship, like the bigger the site gets, the more people, see good skeptical content.
Right.
And like I said, originally it was like a lot of the science of superhero stuff, but everybody does that. So I think it was summer of 2017. So about 3.5 years ago, I was like, well, like I said about getting serious, that was like, all right, I don't want to, just write something once in a while. I set a goal. I'm going to do 2 posts a week, every week. And either I'm going to write them or I'm going to get somebody else to write them. Okay. And that's kind of when AIPT Science was founded, I suppose. And I think Kevin Leyland was the first one who kind of was proof of concept. He's an evolutionary biologist from the UK. He was friends with one of our people at New York City Skeptics. He happened to be in town. He did a lecture for us. And he was talking about how other apes aren't really capable of culture the way we are. And he just kind of threw out some offhanded thing about, so Planet of the Apes probably isn't ever going to happen. Ha, ha, ha. And I talked to him after and I was like, that's interesting. Would you like to expand upon that? And he was like, sure. And he wrote this great article. And I was like, okay, this can work.
Cool. All right. So then you got into the New York City Skeptics. Like what's and you run that now, right? You're president?
Well, I'm president now.
Okay.
I think I'm probably president in the same way that Trump was president, in that, not to get political, I just kind of sit around and like, boss people around. I don't even know. There's not a lot of duties with president. It's just a lot. It's schmoozing, I suppose, and saying, sure, go ahead and do that. Why not? But yeah, so I started so at our Skeptic Camp in December, Mitch Lampard, who does an amazing job with that every year, he did a little James Randi tribute. And I said, it's so funny. So I moved to this, like I said, I grew up in the mountains, upstate New York. Okay. And then I moved down towards the city for work. So I was living in Westchester, Tarrytown, if anybody's familiar. And I moved down there in 2006. It wasn't until 2012 that I realized there was something called the New York City Skeptics. I don't even know how I found it. Like, I wasn't like, I subscribed to the magazines, but that was about the totality of my involvement at the time. Like I said, I was just kind of hanging out and living and working and having fun. So I wasn't really thinking about all that kind of stuff too much. Right. So I was like, oh, there's this skeptics conference in the city. And James Randi was going to be there. And I was like, oh shit, I've read one of his books in college. And I was like, I should probably go. He's probably not going to hang around too much longer. And that was 8 years ago. So yeah. I mean, he hung around a little bit longer. So I went to, I didn't go for the whole thing. I think I only went for one day, and like not even the whole day. I just wanted to make sure that I saw Randy. And he told this, he told the story of Peter Popoff, the faith healer.
Yep, the faith healer, yeah.
And, Randy was just such a great, I mean, he was a great communicator in the sense that he knew how to connect to people.
Yeah.
He would talk about it, and he was like, he would talk in a normal voice for a while. And then when he talked about, his voice would get real low and measured when he talked about the little boy on the crutches who Popoff never saw him. His family followed him around all around the country, and Popoff just never saw him because realistically he knew he couldn't do anything for him, and there wasn't going to be that performative I'm healed thing, because it just couldn't happen.
So for everyone's watching that's not familiar with this story, basically they were following him around and watching and paying attention to who Popoff was healing, quote unquote, and this child in the wheelchair, the parents would bring him every time, and he would be ignored. But other people that had, minor problems or frivolous problems, which is subjective, of course, but, problems that could easily be overcome with determination, or if you really believed, the placebo effect kind of thing going on, then that's who Popoff was focusing on. But this child that's in the wheelchair that was always up front, like always, like I think they had like a special section, right? Wasn't there a special? I think part of the story was that there was a section that they would always direct them to, and it was almost like, these are the people we're going to avoid because there's no way.
Well, they took a list. They made a list. Like his people went out and talked to the audience beforehand, and like got everyone's names and their ailments and whatever. And the whole scam was that Peter Popoff's wife was in his ear. He had an earpiece in, and she told him who to go to and what their problem was. And of course, that was part of the performance. Like, he wasn't supposed to know that, so they're like, "Oh, God must be speaking to him," or whatever.
Right.
And Randy and some other people were able to tune into the frequency that they were using and record his wife talking to him. And it was just awful things she was saying, like belittling these poor people who were sincere and sincerely looking for help. And again, Randy was just such a good emoter and communicator that I saw that and I was like, I can't just sit around and do nothing anymore.
Right.
I cannot live with myself if I don't at least try. So I hung around New York City Skeptics a while, started doing more and more for them, and eventually they got so desperate they made me president. So
that's a great way to look at it. So let's get into skepticism and why it's important. Because you do your articles. I mean, I love the way your articles blend comics and science. It's looking at the science that's told in comics, and can we apply it to real life or not? But you also do the work with the New York City Skeptics, who you guys put on Nexus, right?
We co-promote it with the SGU guys.
Yeah. Oh, yes, which is a conference, a skeptical science conference. So skepticism for me, I know what it means to me, and most of the skeptics that I have on the show, I usually ask this: what does skepticism mean to you? How do you define it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can come up with like a 10-word definition that would satisfy everything.
You can have like 12 or 13. Go ahead.
But so my gut is telling me that the best way to describe it would be something along the lines of just making sure you have the best information. And like I said before, that you're asking the right questions so that you can get as close to knowing the truth as we possibly can. That's something I didn't realize early on when I got into science. Like, I thought, man, I just realized I could have been so sucked into a cult so easily, because I was looking, honestly, I was looking for certainty, and that is the opposite of what science provides. And I didn't realize that at the time. I was like, all right, we know that, F equals MA, F equals GMM over R squared. We know that for sure. No, we don't. I get to college and they'd be like, no, we don't. Well, what do you mean you don't? I mean, We do it all the time. I just did it in the lab. What do you mean we don't? Well, that's a good approximation for how things work in real life. We might find something later on. I mean, Newton thought he had it all figured out. Gravity was easy. So he did a couple equations, figured out that the planets fall around the Earth, or the planets fall around the sun the same way the apple falls from the tree, which was an amazing conceptual revolution. Like that's beyond just the mathematics. That was what really blew people's minds. But then, he didn't have the whole story. Eventually relativity came along and said, yeah, you were close. For stuff down here on Earth, yeah, you're pretty close, but it's not exactly right. And, we're always just trying to get as close as we can. But I was like, I want to know for sure that this is right. And it's not so much that we know for sure that this is right, but science gets us closer than anything else.
Right. And,
because it is iterative. It's like we keep doing it over and over. And if you find something wrong, you test something else and you test it and test it and test it. You try to falsify it and you kind of get close. It's like the mathematical concept of a limit. You get closer and closer and closer and closer, but you can never quite get there. But, at least we're using evidence and some kind of procedures that try to weed out bias. So just kind of applying that scientific rationale to the everyday. You're skeptical of your used car dealer. You're not going to believe a goddamn word he says. Why would you believe a goddamn word anyone else says? Ask questions, find out.
Right. That's a good analogy. I mean, we see it every day where, especially when you're dealing, you can bring in the paranormal, you can bring in politics, you can bring in religion, you can bring all these different topics, and you're going to have people that are going to immediately believe something one way, and then in the same topic, they're going to look at somebody and say, no, I don't believe that at all, or I'm skeptical of that. And like you said, like a used car salesman, yeah, you're going to be like,
Show me the Carfax. Like skeptics are telling everyone, show me the fucking Carfax.
Yeah, this is not a paid promotion, although I wouldn't mind Carfax. But yeah, show me the Carfax. You want to see documentation. You want to see the record.
And the thing we need to understand. And again, I say we because nobody is immune to this kind of thinking. I mean, we all have holes in our logic and in our own blind spots. So the thing we need to understand is that it's not being rude or confrontational to say, show me your evidence. People say like, oh, what? You don't trust me? Motherfucker, I don't trust anybody. Don't take it personally.
There we go. Now
don't take it personally. You shouldn't. I don't trust you. You shouldn't trust me. Show me the evidence. Come on, man. This is kindergarten stuff.
Right.
Don't throw a tantrum. Just, we're all trying to find the same answer. Just settle down.
That's a good one, Donna. Show me the Sci-Fax.
There you go.
I love that. That's like a t-shirt right there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, why do you think there's what's the problem? Why can't people, I guess, apply this to everyday lives or everything? I mean, I know sometimes I annoy the shit out of my wife because I apply this kind of thinking to almost everything in our lives. The only time I probably don't is when I'm sitting down in front of Star Wars or a comic movie. And I'm just like, you know what? I just want to enjoy the fucking movie. Don't talk. Nobody bother me. Just give me my drink and let me sit here and watch the movie. That's it. Like, yeah, I know, Star-Lord can't fucking fly in space with that little helmet. I know he can't, but I like the concept. I like it because it's just a comic book movie. But,
and that's an important thing I should say about AIPT science. So, yeah, like you said before, I mean, it's my own little corner of the site where we talk about the science in movies. We talk about skeptical topics that come up in movies, TV, comics, whatever. What have I had? What have I put out lately?
You've done well. Last year, I know you did like superstitions. You or 2 years ago or something like that. You did a whole series on that, which was cool.
But the important thing is that I think one of the the tenets of science communication in general is don't kill the fun. So I'm not, if somebody submits an article to me that is like, says like, oh, this couldn't happen in this comic, or this couldn't happen in this movie, and, you know, or they got it wrong, the director got it wrong, the writer got it wrong, I'm going to change that language, because killing the fun, there's no point in that. It doesn't get you anywhere. Nobody wants to be told they're wrong. You could say like, okay, well, that's not quite how, I mean, that's a cool idea. That was awesome that Star-Lord flew in space. But how does it really work flying in space? Like,
there you go.
And then you can talk about like, there's no friction, so you only need a little, and then you just keep going. You know, if you want to turn, you're going to need thrust in the opposite direction, and you bring Newton in, and and it's just like, it's an excuse to talk about, you know, I love this stuff too. We love this stuff too.
Right.
And this is how it relates to this other awesome stuff that really happens. It's not like, no, that's wrong, this is right. That's cool, but this is also really cool. Let's talk about it.
Right. And that's a great approach. I mean, when I do something like when it has to do with a ghost sighting or a UFO sighting or something like that, I want to acknowledge the event that happened. Somebody had an experience. Yes. Was it an alien? Was it a ghost? Probably not. But let's listen to your story, and let's. I love a ghost story. I still go on ghost tours. The last time I was in Vegas, we went to Area 51. I wasn't standing there at the gates going, it's all fake. I wasn't standing there doing that. I was actually standing there going, telling my wife, don't go that close. Don't go. Don't. I don't want them to shoot you.
It's a little too close.
Yeah. But I was still excited about it. You know, I went to the little alien.
You bastard.
I know. It was so much fun. Oh my god! We signed a dollar bill because you go into the bar area. Yeah. They all have there's must be thousands of dollar bills hanging from the ceiling, and so cool. It's just people that have signed them and taped them up there, and we did that because why not? But I love that kind of stuff. I love the ghost stories. I love alien stories and UFO stories, but I also love the investigation into them. Like a real investigation, not a bullshit TV reality show one, because those bore the fuck out of me.
Right. And that's what, and we do, like, I just published today something. Okay, so we'll talk more about specifics later, but just to give some people background why I'm here at this particular point in time. So I always do skeptical stuff. Like I said, you try to do about 2 posts a week, whether it's science and media, skepticism and media. But I set a goal every month, every February, to help celebrate Darwin's birthday on the 12th. I try to do as much skeptical content in pop culture as I can. You know, whether it's me, I know I'll write a bunch of articles. I get other people to write a bunch of articles. And this year I started early and I set a goal. We're going to do a post every single day, a new post every day, whether it's something original, whether it's criticizing something in pop culture, whether it's talking about cool stuff, cool skeptical things in pop culture, book reviews, whatever. I'm going to post every day, and I think it's going to happen. And today, it was totally not like yesterday. I mean, this is a great contrast. Yesterday, I put up a book review of Brian Deere's newish book on Andrew Wakefield, you know, the guy who basically started the modern anti-vax movement. And Deere was the one who, you know, was hammering him the whole time, and he basically put out a retrospective of the whole thing, I don't know, like 23 years later.
Okay.
So, you know, that's kind of a downer of a topic, but I had somebody review the book. It's good that, you know, every little bit helps. You know, the more links that are out there that are, you know, promoting the good stuff, the more it waters down what the bad guys are doing. But then today I posted something. I don't know if you watch the Small Town Monsters stuff. Seth Breedlove is a guy who makes all these documentaries about UFOs and Bigfoot and all this stuff. And I wrote up somebody on the site wrote a pretty non-critical review of his last On the Trail of UFOs documentary. And I put it up and I was like, you know, this is just fun. I mean, the thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of skeptics, quote unquote skeptics. Like you said, I mean, just because we don't believe the stuff is real doesn't mean we don't have fun with it.
Right.
You know, I love cryptids. I still love UFOs. I love reading those old old encounter stores from the 50s and 60s where like it wasn't just grays, people were meeting like tree men and gnomes and just bizarre shit. It was like, I'll never forgive the Greys for like taking away all that nonsense. It was like Jack Kirby was drawing the aliens of the 50s,
Right.
Just like bizarre nonsense. It's so much fun. I bought the Mothman Funko Pop on eBay. I was like, I have to have this. I can't know that is in the world and I don't own it. I had to go get it because it's fun. Comic books aren't real either, but I still read Venom and Captain America.
I'm a little bit of a fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. I totally get it. By the way, I have the Chupacabra Pop figure.
See, but it's a mangy dog, though, right? It's not the reptilian Chupacabra.
No, yeah, it is.
What?
It's not a mangy dog one.
What?
I got the original one.
Oh my god!
Oh shit! Where is it? Now I want to find it because it was. Where is it? I don't know. I have so many of them. No, I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
I'll have to look for it, and I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
But yeah,
and I'm gonna have a post later in the month that is I have some other like the Mothman Pop is real cute. Fittingly enough, a toy game company called Cryptozoic Entertainment made a line of things called Cryptkins that were like little keychain sized things.
Yeah.
And one of those I'm gonna throw up. My wife, again, amazing. Be jealous, everybody. She found on Etsy for me a pink plush Popo Bawa. Popo Bawa is the Zanzibar skeptic raping bat demon.
Yes.
And she found if we have the time to take a break at some point, I will run upstairs and get it. It's amazing. So I'm gonna do a whole post just about cute cryptid merch. I mean, why not? It's fun.
So I'm going to show you real quick because I love this. This is the one that I have. That's the Chupacabra I have.
What is that? That's not even the original. What is that?
That's the first one that came out.
It was more humanoid. It had the spines on the back.
Wait, maybe
I don't know what that is. That's like a basilisk or something.
I think I have that one. I don't know. I have to look.
I've never seen that. I've never seen
I have to look. I have that one. I saw the mangy dog one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's the newest one.
And that's so disappointing about how the folklore changed on that.
Right.
Because I remember when the Chupacabra first started being reported and it's so funny how people's perceptions and memories are so malleable because you'll have, people from Puerto Rico, like, there are 70-year-olds in Puerto Rico right now who will say, "Oh, I remember my parents telling me about the Chupacabra when I was a kid."
Right.
Yeah. What? Show me. Show me written down. Show me a picture. Show me anything. Ben Radford, he did the whole book about it.
Yeah.
There's a review of that on AIPT, by the way.
That I have back here.
Yeah. And it's like, and people just convinced themselves that I'd always been around. But then all of a sudden, I think it didn't even last that long. I think it took like 5 years before the little reptilian alien humanoid became a friggin' mangy dog. Who cares?
Right.
Give me my weird alien bug-eyed thing back, please.
I agree. I mean, I love. I'm when I hang out.
Interrupt for a sec. Sorry,
Sure.
Rob says in the chat, the original one was based on the movie Species. Yes, yes. It was the original report. The original report. The woman had seen Species like 2 weeks before.
Right. And then it went from there.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen sadly in conspiratorial 2021, we've seen how fast weird ideas spread.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. I mean, it's easy once it's in the pop culture mainstream. It's easy to forget that it wasn't there years ago. You know. And
it kind of feels like it's always been around.
Right.
That happened to me, actually. I feel like suddenly I felt like everyone was talking about black-eyed kids. And I was like, man, I was into all the weird stuff when I was young. And I don't remember ever hearing about black-eyed kids. but people were talking about it like it had always been around. So I was like, I guess I just fell through the cracks. I must have missed it. And then he talked about it on Monster Talk. And it was like, again, kind of like the Chupacabra. That's something you can trace back basically to an X-Files episode in like late 90s or whatever it was. And it's like, oh, okay, so I wasn't crazy. But yeah, it's like, it was like, oh, and then you think about something like Slender Man. People don't realize that you can literally go back and see the actual origin, the made up, or you can see the first admittedly Photoshop picture of Slender Man. It was a contest. It was a contest to say, make up your creepiest myth. And yet people don't realize that. And some people think it's real. It's amazing.
I was doing, so I was asked to do a project, and I can't get into the details of the project, but it had to do with a film called Butterfly Kisses by Eric Christopher Myers.
Yes, I think we might have reviewed that too, actually.
Okay, so I was asked to do a project about it, and I started watching it again because I had watched it originally like a year and a half ago or something like that. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to do some research on the background. And they call the I guess the ghost or demon or whatever Blink Man. And I'm looking it up, and I'm seeing all these websites talking about Blink Man and Blink Man and Blink Man. And I guess like in the wee hours of, I had been on this for like 10 hours straight, going through different things because I went down the rabbit hole. And I realized it all came back to the website that I'm pretty sure Eric Christopher Myers created for the film.
He knew what he was doing.
That's it. So all of these other like legend websites, ghost hunting websites, spooky shit websites, they all had this story where they almost cut and paste, but then some of them added a little bit more. Like, oh, people said this, people said that. And all the stories traced back to this one website, and it didn't go back past maybe a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like this legend has been here all the time. And that's what these websites were promoting. I'm like, no, it hasn't, because I know the website that you stole all this information from. And wow, it's just ingrained into your culture. And I think that's what it is. The paranormal pop culture, the cryptid pop culture, whatever, it gets in your head, and people talk about it so much that it seems like it's been there forever.
It's like to get, I mean, you said talking shop earlier. They get a little technical. It's the availability heuristic. It's like everybody's talking about it. There must be something to it.
Right. John says, wait, do people believe Slender Man is real?
Some people. I mean, you talk about the attempted murder case a few years ago.
Yeah.
I wrote about that too. I go to AIPTcomics.com, search for Slender Man. It's obviously there were, well, for people who don't know the story, there were two young girls, like preteen probably, I guess. Maybe even younger, like 10-ish, something like that. Who they took their friend out in the woods because they thought Slender Man wanted them to kill her, and if they killed her, they could go live in Slender Man's castle in the woods or something. And obviously there's something wrong with these two kids. But and through all the legal stuff since I'm burying the lead here. They stabbed the girl. She lived.
Yeah.
But through all the legal stuff that followed, they did mental tests and everything, and apparently they were fit to stand trial. But at the same time, it's like, these two completely believed in their hearts of hearts that Slender Man was real, and I don't think they're the only ones.
Right. I posted the article.
Thank you.
In the chat room.
The writing in that is shit since it's a few years ago, so I apologize. but that article was born out of a friend of mine. He was getting mad at me because I was always talking shit about Bigfoot, and he was like, "Who cares? Who cares if people believe in Bigfoot? You're wasting your time. Talk about something more important." And I'm like, Bigfoot, obviously nobody's going to go kill somebody because they think Bigfoot is real. Although If you go out in the woods and your buddy jumps out at you in a monkey suit because he thinks it's going to be funny, and you really believe Bigfoot is a big, nasty creature, you might shoot your buddy in the fucking face. That could happen.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe Bigfoot belief in and of itself isn't that harmful, but it's kind of like, I'm going to coin a term right here. I'm going to say it in public for the first time, so you can owe me. It's kind of gateway bullshit. Like, I love Bigfoot. Don't get me wrong. He's a cool guy. But like, if you, again, kind of like, there you go. kind of like I had the poor reasoning when I was younger. Like, if you think the level of evidence for Bigfoot is sufficient to believe this thing is real, in spite of his existence flying in the face of everything we know about ecology and breeding populations and food webs and everything, and fossil records, because there's no apes in the fossil record in North America. So despite all that, if you're willing to accept the paltry evidence that Bigfoot is real, then you're probably people are going to make you to believe all kinds of terrible things. I mean, like, I'm not saying Bigfoot leads to QAnon. I'm not saying it's a one-to-one relationship. But again, it's cracking the door. It's cracking the door.
Yes. And that's it. You're right. It's a gateway into other conspiracy theories or other claims with the same level of lackluster evidence. Because like you said, there's very little, if any, actual evidence. I mean, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, there is no evidence that shows Bigfoot is a real creature. But there's all this subjective bullshit that's out there. Anecdotes are the major portion of the evidence. So if you're going to go off of just people's stories about what happened, even though they weren't there, they didn't actually see the body, they saw something from afar, it was dark, or they heard noises. I mean, one of the cases that really makes me laugh is there were a couple people in a cabin and they heard rocks being thrown at the roof. They didn't actually go outside, but they swore rocks were hitting the roof, and they were thrown by Bigfoot. Nobody went outside to look. Nobody knows, but they just assumed because there had been sightings in the area, and I guess they wanted it to be Bigfoot. So if you're going to believe in a, for lack of a better term, fairy tale like that, based on the shit evidence, the shit data that's available, then what else are you going to believe when there's just a little bit more?
Exactly.
So it does lead, and I mean, that goes into other areas. I touched on it on the show before, like belief in psychics, aka some grief vampires, where people are going to dump a lot of money into that because they believe what the psychics is telling them. They're going to take advice from the psychics or ghost. I mean, some of the things that I've dealt with where ghost hunters go into a home and tell you that they have evidence of demons in your house, and it fucks up. Yeah, the family either wants to move out, they can't sleep in the house, they're scared to come home. There's a lot of anxiety and stuff. So there, even though this is not, the Slender Man is a prime example of this because it is a belief in a fairy tale, a literal fairy tale.
Yeah, you can literally go on. I know creepy. It's most known for being from creepypasta. It might have been born on like 4chan.
Yeah, that's where I think it originated.
Yeah, that's how it got unleashed into the mainstream.
Right.
But you can literally go back. I think the posts are still there. I don't know. I'm sure somebody has screen capped them if they're not. But you can literally go back and see the whole contest that spawned the idea of Slender Man. It's literally fabricated in front of your eyes, and yet some people still believe in it. They're like, oh, well, I mean, you can imagine, oh, it manifested itself through that. Come on, just stop.
So our buddy Rob.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, keep going.
I'm going to go ahead. What does Rob got to say?
Our buddy Rob wants to know what the origin of Bigfoot is.
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows exactly.
I recall that, I mean, Bigfoot hunters, enthusiasts, I know they link it to American Indian tales and
but we know better than that.
Legends. Yeah, I see a distinct difference. I don't think that they're the same things.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. I mean, it's like any mythology. It's like we don't believe
really
in
know.
In turtle creator god. We don't think there's a turtle creator god holding the earth up. On
the back of another turtle.
But Bigfoot, that was the legit part of their mythology. But no, like you said, it doesn't. It's really a strain to wedge Bigfoot into Native American mythology. It's like you have like something that sort of resembles it, but not really.
Right. And then I know most people refer to the Patterson-Gimlin film, but that was not the first thing. The stories had already been around, and I do believe it was the first like public announcement or public experience that went public and spread through the news. Was a construction worker who apparently found a Bigfoot print, but that was later shown to be a hoax, that he had actually created the wooden foot and made that print as a joke. So, but beyond that, I mean, that's probably another show. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
I'd have to get to get into that. Let's keep going here. Slender Man was also a Skeptoid episode. Yes, it was. Where did the Bigfoot thing start? We tried to cover that, but we didn't. So I guess I want to ask you now, then, since you do all this writing, you do these reviews, you look into some of these stories and stuff, how do you tell good information from bad? Like, how do you know what to pass on to your readers and what is trash or conspiracy theory or just straight up bullshit?
Yeah, well, I mean, let me make this answer. Let me answer a question you didn't ask.
Okay.
I'm going to answer the question you meant to ask.
All right, Alex.
What is the point of skeptical outreach? Thank you, Kenny. That's a great question. I'll tell you.
Oh, thank you, Russ. Appreciate that.
So getting back to, it is all related. You'll see, I swear.
Okay.
So getting back to what we were talking about before about science communication. So science communication wasn't really a thing like 25 years ago. Certainly not as we think of it now. And it certainly wasn't something scientists themselves did. Again, going way back, Carl Sagan was heavily criticized by his colleagues, by his peers, by the scientific community for doing any kind of outreach, for doing communication, because they thought he was grandstanding. They thought he wanted to be a star, wanted to be a celebrity. And for the longest time, scientists did not think communicating to the public was part of their job. It was, I did the work, I published it. The other professionals know where it is. If they need to reference it, I'm moving on to the next thing. I don't care what the public thinks. Maybe they don't care about my stupid narrow interest, my stupid narrow specialty. So I don't, I'm not going to bother. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect my funding, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously, when things like climate change denial came around, anti-vaccine bullshit came around, et cetera, scientists started to figure out that if you don't control the narrative surrounding your work, somebody else is going to, and they're going to do it for their own ends, whatever that may be. It could be okay, it could be nefarious, it could be neutral. But if you don't control what people think about your work, someone else is going to spin it for their own reasons. And now SciComm is a big part of a lot of PhD programs. Lots of scientists want to do it. They want to help people understand. I don't think skepticism has gotten to that point yet, which is kind of strange because, and this is where a lot of people probably don't agree with me, a lot of the old guard at least, because ostensibly, that's the reason organized skepticism began in the first place. It was because things like astrology and ancient aliens and UFOs and things were really catching people's imagination in the 70s. So, all our luminaries, they got together, and then, CSI was, I think, the original
the
organization
yeah.
in America, then PsyCop, yeah.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do something about it. And, the sad thing is belief kind of shifts over time. But the overall belief in silly ideas doesn't really seem to go down. And I'm not blaming anyone for that, because it's probably, just part of human nature. But at the same time, I kind of see like our journals, like Skeptical Inquirer, Shermer Skeptic, Skeptic Magazine from UK and Australia. I see those kind of like our scientific journals. Like, that's where you publish your research. You go out like you do, like Ben does, like so many people, Joe Nickel. You go out and you investigate something, you publish your research in the journal, so all your peers can find it. And anyone who wants to be knowledgeable about the latest in ghost investigation has got to read Skeptical Inquirer to know what's going on. Just like, if I was a real geophysicist, I would have to be reading geophysical research letters to know what the current state of affairs is, and that's awesome. I mean, that's step one. That's doing the science. That's doing the work. The next step is communicating it so that people understand these things. Sometimes I feel like we think it's just enough to publish the article in CSI, to publish an article online and I'm obviously talking out both sides of my mouth here, because I write for the website too. But it's like, that's cool, but it's preaching to the choir, and it's talking to the other professionals. At some point, we have to take that SciComm step and make a concerted SkepComm step to get the information to the people who really need it, because the average person is not going to pick up an issue of Skeptical Inquirer. It's just not going to happen. And again, I'm not saying that means the magazine is bad. I think it's exactly what it needs to be. But no one is targeting the general audience, in my opinion. And yeah, that's hard to do. Like, everybody says, oh, well, what we need is a show on network television or something like that. All right, well, that's not going to happen immediately. You got to start somewhere. And that's why I consider AIPT science an important thing. I call it SkepComm. It's taking the research of all the people who do all the great work, like you and Ben and everybody else, and getting it in front of the people who would never find it otherwise. And that's how, to finally get to your question, that's how I get good information in front of people. Because if I'm talking about a conspiracy, I've been doing a series that I'm finally going to finish for Skepticism Month on that Project Blue Book show that A&E ran, that docu, whatever the fuck it was. It wasn't
that clusterfuck of a show.
But the thing is, they talked about a real case in just about every episode. And I've got almost all of them, all of the case. I've got an article on almost every case. And what do? When I talk about Flatwoods, when I talk about the Flatwoods episode, I linked to Joe Nickel's article on Flatwoods. Right. He said, hey, somebody investigated this. Here it is. And yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, people are talking about this show. Hey, if you're interested in this, you really need to see this, because here's the real story as best we understand it.
So I want to give an example of what you're talking about. So when you're talking about getting it in front of people that need it, the information that needs it, I totally agree. And one of my philosophies, and I've said this to several people, JD's not in the chat room. I haven't seen him yet, but we've had discussions about it, that I don't write for skeptics. Like, none of my articles are written for skeptics. Good. Because as far as I know, they don't believe the shit that I write about anyway. Like, the topics that I'm writing about, most skeptics are not believing that there's a UFO or a ghost or the haunted thing or this gadget, whatever detects ghosts. They're already convinced. I'm not, because you're right, it's preaching to the choir. I'm not doing that. When I do articles, it's online, so it's not something you have to pay for, and I share it on paranormal sites. That's what I do most of the time. I also attend conferences. I have the opportunity most times to talk at paranormal conferences. I do skeptics and humanist groups too, and I love doing it because it's fun to talk shop with people. But I love doing paranormal conferences. I love being part of that because that's the people that, as you said, that's the people that need to hear some of this information.
But at the same time, like you said a moment ago, I mean, a lot of those people are true believers, and it's like talking to a wall. But the thing I like about, I thought about, well, maybe I could spin this whole concept into its own website. And to me, that kind of defeats the purpose because, AIPT is not known for this kind of skeptical content. It's known for comic book reviews. Some people know it for wrestling. Some people know it for movie reviews. So people will come and look at the main page and they'll say, all right, well, there's the Batman review I'm looking for. And what the hell is this about Mothman underneath here? That looks cool. Let me click on that. So that stumble on is very important because there's people, because those are the people who probably don't have an opinion. So you're kind of prehabbing a concept for them. Like, before you stumble upon this stupid thing, let me tell you how it really is. Or like maybe you've heard about this and you don't really know what people are talking about. Here's the real story before you get too polluted.
I love that.
And before we get, and I just want to shout out to Rob because he's pitching a fit in the comments about guerrilla skeptics on Wikipedia reaching people. Rob, I love you. You know how I feel. That's the real work. Guerrilla skeptics on Wikipedia, I've said over and over, is the most important movement, the most important thing in skepticism, as far as I'm concerned. Because that is exactly it. Everyone uses Wikipedia. Everyone goes there. And if the good information is there, then people don't even understand. Because I think a lot of the problem too is with bias. Like if you link someone to something that says skeptic in the name, to be like, all right, well, you're just going to debunk it automatically. You're not even going to bother actually thinking about it. You're closed-minded. But if it's on a comic book site, whatever. And Wikipedia is ostensibly neutral, so they don't know if you're going to a Wikipedia entry, you don't know who wrote that or why. Right. And it's not like they can kick the information off because it's well sourced, and it makes sense. So yes, Wikipedia, Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia, again, as far as I'm concerned, is the number one gold standard of skeptical activism. And I just do this little fun thing on the side.
I have a fun little story that I think Rob will get a kick out of because it just happened yesterday or today. I forget when. So I'm very new to TikTok. I've been on there and I'm kind of searching through the paranormal videos, and you can do these things called duets where you can, comment on, you can do a video side by side with somebody that, thinks they have a ghost or something like that.
Oh, cool.
I recently saw a video like this morning. I'm pretty sure it was this morning where a girl did a video about a Dybbuk box. And she has this little thing, and it starts out where it's almost like she kind of believes it, but then you realize that she thinks it's full shit, and she quotes stuff that I wrote, that appeared on the Wikipedia page, for the Dybbuk box, which had just been added like maybe a week or two ago by Rob Palmer, because we talked about it. I had Susan on, and we were talking about it, and noticed that the Dybbuk box page didn't have any information like on the skeptic. Well, it had a little bit, but not everything. And Rob had added it like the next day. And this woman made this video, which really had a couple thousand views already. And it was just, I read it. I'm looking at it like, wait, she's talking about stuff I wrote. Holy shit. Wait, she saw it on Wikipedia. Holy shit. That's so awesome.
You know what that is? That's a system working.
Yeah. I love that. It just seeing it come full circle like that. And I actually reached out to the young lady and said, hey, thanks for using this information. She's like the article was awesome. It was great. I loved it. Got the Wikipedia page. It looks like it. She was so happy. Which is great. Like you said, this is the system working. This is getting it out there to the public, which would not normally see it. Like if you go to a science convention, most of the people there are into science, especially because most science conventions are so expensive. I love them, but they're expensive. So if you're going there, you're committed.
And that's the thing. I see a comment from C in the comments about oftentimes skeptics just seem to want to get together and show how smart they are and make fun of others.
Yeah.
I think that worm is turning, but there have definitely been people like that. And conventions, skeptic conventions, SciCon, Nexus. Although Nexus, we did the online thing this past year.
Right.
And that worked out so well. We had like 1,500 people watching. So that was
I watched it all day. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, the in-person conventions, those are for us. That's not, and I hear people will say, well, like, how can we get outsiders in? Outsiders aren't going to plunk down $200, $300 or travel for this. That's what all the other communication stuff is for. That's for us to talk shop. That's for us to strategize. That's for us to recharge our batteries and be around people with like minds. And that's an important function too. But like I said, it's an important function, but it's not the same as once you do that, once you strategize with your homies, then you go do the work of bringing it to everybody else.
I always have a problem with I guess it's big names in the skeptic community, and I'm not going to name anyone, but there's big names that will only do the science conventions. But when you talk to them about, like, all right, you're talking to people that have already probably seen the information that you're giving a dozen times.
Yeah.
I've seen your lectures online. That's why I don't like when I do a live lecture and people want to record it and put it on their website, because then it's like, all right, well, now everyone's going to see it. Who wants to come out to a meeting, and see the same shit over and over again? I'd rather I love that interaction with people. I love the personal, when we used to be able to do that. But getting out there and attending paranormal conventions, Bigfoot conventions, UFO conventions, I've done them all. I continue to do them because that's how you're going to reach those people. They're not going to come to a science convention.
And hey, let me tell you, I don't know, because you're in the Philly area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in, New York suburbs, let's say. So when public meetings are a thing again, you're going to have to, if there's something in Jersey or something, you're going to have to let me know about all the cool paranormal conventions, because I never know when they're happening. I feel like I need to get to some of these things. We actually have a UFO festival in Pine Bush, which is a little north of me, every year, which I just found about recently. And I think it was the last one just got cut off by the pandemic. So I'm waiting for that one to come back. But yeah, let me know, because I'd like to get in on that too.
I will let you know, because there's a couple that are scheduled, and one is probably up closer, because there's a one called Para Unity Conference, and it's a lot of ghost hunters, and a lot of psychics and stuff like that. And it's up, I forget where, but it's probably about an hour and a half north of me. So it would be closer.
That's reachable, for me.
It's reachable. But I'll let you know. I'll talk to you after the show. And there's plenty of others. There's one in there's two in Gettysburg that are scheduled for more like June, July, if it's safe. Because I don't know if that's going to work, but that's what
I see John Kennedy was asking in the John. Oh my God, Q was right. John Kennedy is back.
Oh my God.
He says, what's the band shirt you're wearing? The font is definitely metal. Well, there's a website I like that does news and metal gossip called metalsucks.net. And they have a contest every week that it's they'll give away merch if you can figure out the totally unreadable band logo of the week. So this one is actually pretty easy. I can't really get a good angle on it, but
Let's wait. Hold on. Let's see. Let's bring you up there.
Hold on. Let me. Oh, there we go. Let me get this out of the way. Oh, the bones are creaking. All right.
You old fuck.
Anybody?
Anyone? Take your guesses.
I can only do this for about 5 more seconds.
There you go. All right, man. Take it down. You're good.
It's well, I'll let you think about it a little more and I'll explain. So again, I went to Boston and for grad school, and that was where I first saw my first small show. Like I had been to Ozfest before that, which is cool, but I really prefer smaller shows. I want to get right up against the stage and let the sound wash over me and like people spilling beer on you. It's just the best fucking thing in the world. So I got really into the scene when I was there, and I happened to stumble on these kids, these 3 kids. The drummer didn't know how to mic his shit. The bassist was turned up way too high, and the guitarist was a phenomenon. His name was Dave Davidson. They were all 18 or around there, and he could do things that I had never seen anybody else do. And the bassist eventually figured out how to tune his amp. The drummer figured his shit out, and he became amazing, completely self-taught. And they became a band called Revocation that is now signed to Metal Blade, I think, and that's who this is, Revocation. Sadly, the guitarist is the only one still there, but they do amazing technical, like progressive death. And I'm usually a thrash guy, but just to see Revocation go from those beginnings, and I do mean humble beginnings, of playing in somebody's basement to, headlining tours around the world, it's really gratifying. And they became really good musicians and really good songwriters, which they weren't so much at first. But then Dave went to Berklee School of Music, and all of a sudden they were a great band.
Wow. That's cool. That's cool. Rob says, oh, he met me at a Psychon workshop. Oh, yeah, I did a workshop. And I think the first time I met Rob, I had to give him a bottle of rum, a small bottle of rum, because he was I had a little contest going, and he was the first one that did the contest rules. So getting back to good information versus bad information, the question that I was originally trying to get across to you that you changed to a different question. Well, my
question was better.
I'm gonna change it back because I don't know if I got it across right. When you research for an article, you have a topic, you're researching it to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine what you're looking up is good or bad? Whether it's solid information or if it's shit information or shit data.
Well, that's the thing. I don't feel like that's an excellent question.
Because I know a lot of people.
I'm sorry
that
for partially dodging it.
It's all right. A lot of people that you talk to, that's a question that comes up a lot. Is either with this show or the show that I do on Saturday nights with 2 other guys. The question comes up a lot, like, how do you tell the difference between good or bad?
And that's why I draw a distinction between skepticism, skeptical research, and what I'm calling skeptical communication. Because I feel like what you and Ben and Joe Nickel and everybody else does is different from what I do. Like, I'm not digging into an old ghost legend in New Orleans or something, I'm waiting until you guys figure it out. And then I'm directing people to your work. I'm a conduit. I am a conduit, man. I do nothing of value myself. I just make sure guys like you get the attention you deserve. I'm saying that in a joking tone, but I honestly mean that.
Okay. Well,
seriously.
You've written, well, all right. So, like when you did the article on regeneration,
mm-hmm.
So how did you get your information? Did you just go and troll, or stalk other like scientists or
I mean,
websites?
it's like, like I said, I'm trained in science journalism. So the first thing is, if you want to get really serious, is
Let's get serious.
You go to the papers. You go and you read the actual paper,
right?
Which I've done for articles. And by the way, if you think you need to be some highfalutin journalist with a fucking giant list of clippings to get a scientist to talk to you about your work, trust me, that is not the case. Scientists will talk about their work to anybody. And if you ask them to send you a PDF of their paper, like getting a scientific paper on your own is incredibly expensive. Yeah. But if you literally go to the university, go search the guy woman, whoever did the research, search their name, figure out where they work, where they teach, go to their university page, find their email them, say, hey, I found some article about your research. I'd like to know more about it. Could you send me the paper? And they will do it, because they're allowed to have the paper and they're allowed to send it to people. And I promise you, they will send it to you for free. And there are, if you're not trained in science, it is tough to read a scientific paper. But there are guides out there to help you, or ask me and I'll help you. I don't care. But it's kind of like, this is almost circular reasoning, but you find the outlets that you trust. Scientific American. If you're skipping the direct paper route and you're going and you're going to one step lower of initial science journalism, you trust Scientific American, you trust this, you trust that. I think for that article about the regeneration, I think it was just, I'm actually going to look and see what my links are here. National Geographic, Scientific American. It's, I guess there really is no right. I don't know if there is a specific methodology to say, maybe maybe that's something we should work on. We should work on what's reputable and what's not, so people can cross-check it. Because I don't know if there is a defined rubric. For guys like us, it's probably natural to say, National Geographic is good, Scientific American is good. Don't go to Natural News. But at the same time, but again, that's the bubble we live in. Right. And that's the bubble I try to get out of. But at the same time, it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that. Maybe people don't realize that Natural News is garbage.
I think you're onto it. It's very hard because when I try to field this question, it's difficult because I think this is a learned thing. It's experience with dealing with books, websites, people, when you interviews, talking to people and their backgrounds or what they're saying. It's experience that builds up that tells you something's not right with this, or this is a good source. Like for me, I look for what they do. What did they do? What was their method? How did they come up with this conclusion? Did they try to rule it out? Did they try to prove themselves wrong? Is it their opinion? What's the wording that they're using? If there's a lot of this might lead to this, or this could lead to this. If there's a lot of words like this, I get a little nervous about using it.
I'll tell you what, just to give some practical examples, if I do run into a website or something that I don't know anything about, sometimes I'll just Google the name and I'll go to Wikipedia and see if Wikipedia says anything. I'll see if anybody from the science or skeptical community says anything about it. I will go to their about section and see if they admit to an agenda, or if they dance around an agenda, or if they're betraying an agenda when they might not necessarily mean to. I guess an important question to ask is, why are they doing this? What is their motivation in publishing this? What is their motivation in hosting this website or whatever the form of information is? Like, are they trying to inform? Are they trying to sell you something? Is there a lot of ads on the site? And obviously none of these things are foolproof. But the things to think about. Ask your friends. I mean, and I don't mean like ask your neighbor. I mean, if you ask somebody you trust, ask somebody you know is kind of skeptical. Hey, have you ever heard of this?
Right.
I think a lot of, and this is something that I hope is going to come to fruition later, so stay tuned. I think a lot of our problems as skeptics come from the fact that we might not always communicate so well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are clicks, but the clicks don't always intersect. And I'm not blaming anyone for this. You know, sometimes these things just happen.
Yeah, I think it's a natural thing. Yeah, it just happens.
But at the same time, I feel like if all the information flowed more freely and we were all a little more willing to talk to each other, say, hey, what do you think about this? Have you run across this? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, I always say, don't invent the wheel. If somebody else has already figured it out, go to that person, ask around. You know, I guess what's a reliable source? And if you don't know if a source is reliable or not, let's brainstorm some ideas you can do. Like I said, go to their about section, see what else they've published. If they publish something you know is bullshit, then that's a red flag.
Right. Look for disclaimers.
Look at the ads that they run. Google it. See what other people are saying. Go to Wikipedia. See what Wikipedia says. Thank you, Rob and Susan and everybody else. Ask around. Ask people whose skeptical or scientific opinions you trust. And say, hey, have you heard of this? No, I haven't heard of it. Okay. Do you know someone who might have heard of it? Right. You know, just keep working those contacts. And that's kind of something you learn through journalism, is that the answer isn't always going to be obvious. Yeah. You kind of have to, it's almost like a game of 6 degrees of separation. It's like the first person you ask might not have the answer, but they might know somebody.
Right.
And that somebody might know somebody.
Right.
And that somebody might know somebody. And, you know, it's all a matter of, and I think that's why, to answer the question you asked about an hour and a half ago, I think that's part of the reason that people don't do the used car salesman test for everything, is that it takes effort. That's the simple, tragic answer. I mean, we're not designed we're designed to expend as little energy as we have to and if we can survive expending as little energy as we have to, we're going to do it. You know, you want to know for sure that your used car is reliable because you don't want to die in a car wreck and you don't want to have to spend $5,000 to replace the transmission.
Right.
Buying something that says no GMOs might cost 50 cents more, but it's not going to kill me.
Right. I get it. I guess in journalism, we call it leads. I mean, these are all leads. And when you ask somebody, then they tell you, well, I don't know.
Or just like contacts, sources.
Contacts, keep going. It's funny.
Like a lot of science journalists, people who are known as quote unquote science journalists, they might have like, and that's another part. I've done a whole presentation on why science journalism sucks. And a lot of it is out of the actual journalist's hands, sadly. Because people are overtaxed. Like for an outlet to even have a science person is amazing. Usually the science person has to cover other beats these days too. But like science, okay, your beat is cover the entire natural universe. No, that's no problem, right?
Right.
So science journalists will have an astronomer they trust, a biologist they trust, a doctor they trust, whatever. And they'll go, okay, so there's this new study about gamma ray bursts. And they'll go to their astronomer contact and say, hey, what do you know about this? And sometimes they'll say, well, I know this. And if they don't know anything, they'll say, I don't know anything about it, but I know somebody who does. And that's it's a lot of legwork and it sucks. And, if it's something stupid and somewhat inconsequential, nobody's going to do it.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I mean, this is something usually when I talk to Ben, because I usually talk to Ben Radford a lot. Going back, he's my editor. So,
Me too. And yet I'm also his when he
Yeah.
writes for AIPT.
Yeah.
It's a weird snake eating its own tail thing.
So when we chat sometimes, like it always comes up, like the amount of work that goes into it. So even the simplest articles that maybe are like for the column that I do, it's usually I'm supposed to say it like 1,500 words, which never happens because I talk too much. I just talk too much. But even for the short ones that come close to that number, it still takes me maybe a week or two to finish that, to figure out what's going on. And you don't understand like the context. You have to call this person. If they don't have an answer, now you have to get another contact. You have to call that person. You have to wait for them to call you back and then get the information. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I do have like I have a paper that I wrote on that, or I have a book on it. So now you have to wait another day or two for them to send you that PDF, or you have to find the book on Amazon or something and have it sent to you so you can read the material. There's a lot of work. That's just talking to people, not actually digging through records. So
It's all part of it,
you have to be committed to this kind of thing. I always think it's more of a passion. You have to be passionate about it and love what you're doing in order to do it. Because I mean, shit, for one article, sometimes it takes me weeks or months. One actually, I'm going on like 4 years now, and I haven't finished it because I'm still waiting for information. So
and that's why I let you guys do the real work. And then I said so the last in-person Nexus so far, 2019, I got my panel on the science and philosophy of X-Men biology, I think I called it. I had a lot of people doing all kinds of crazy cool articles on genetics and ethics and things. And we all, we got up on a panel at Nexus. And I said, I forget what the context was, but I said to somebody at some point, I was like, they're like, oh, you got to be the moderator. You got a tough job. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just the carnival barker. I'm pointing to you and you're telling people what you know. What is my purpose? You can put a mannequin up there to do my job. But at the same time, I do take pride in being an editor because I often say to people that I spent money on journalism classes that you don't have to. And the thing about we don't really know how to communicate to the public is part of the problem. So I like to take kind of beginning communicators, people who want to get into communication, and try to, again, like I said, like try to use what I've learned from my journalism instruction to tell them, like, this is how you connect with people. Like, you got the good information. You just got to make sure it resonates. So you got to tell a story. It's got to be laid out right. It's the digital age. You got to keep people hooked with every sentence, cut out all the weasel words.
Yeah.
Most people, when I edit them, I will cut out, even if all the information is great, I end up cutting 100, 200 words just of, so that is, or it was said that. Just cut that shit out, man. Just death to passive voice. Cut out all the that's. And just tighten it up so that people aren't navigating away while they're reading your good information. So you say, speaking of you say, I can't keep to 1,500 words. That sounds like a challenge to me. Here's something I want to do with you today. So I want to make sure we get this in. So I asked you a little while ago if you wanted to write something for Skepticism Month.
Right.
And you were like, yeah. And honestly, I didn't have any ideas. Usually I come to you with a specific idea. Like,
Last year,
Comic Shop Ghost in England, that was so awesome. I was like, me being like, I don't really study that sort of thing too much, So I was like, well, here's somebody that says, oh, I own a comic shop and there's this orb and I don't know where it came from. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I don't really know where it came from either. But I came to you and I was like, this seems like the perfect confluence of things for you. It's a ghost in a comic book store. So I was like, could you do me a huge favor and look at this? And literally like 2 days later, you were like, there it is. And you figured it out like it was nothing. And it pissed me off and I loved it at the same time. I was so happy and so angry that you solved it that quickly. But, you know.
Hey,
so,
full disclaimer, it doesn't always happen like that. So I don't know what you're going to lay on me here. But
no, but here's the thing. It's like, yeah, like I said, I couldn't come up with something to reverse pitch to you this time. So this is an exercise for everybody watching. A lot of people say, like, people will tell me, like, oh, I'm not a good writer. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm a great editor. So you're fine. Don't worry about it. Or they're like, I don't know what to write about. So we're going to dialogue. We're going to try to figure out right here what you're going to write for Skepticism Month.
Oh, put me on the spot. You know what? Fuck. I've been cheating a little. I've been thinking a little bit, and I already know kind of what you're into. But I see the poster behind you of the logical fallacies. Fallacies, yes.
I was actually going to try to get. I know Aaron Rabinowitz has done some articles for me. He's a philosopher at Rutgers, specializing in ethics, and I was going to try to get the cards for him because. You know, he's pretty reliable. He's a good communicator. He writes in an accessible style. So I was going to try to get the cards for him to kind of review that. So, I mean, you could kind of look at the poster, and I don't know if you can really review a poster. I don't know what we can do with that. But if that's something you're really into, we can try to figure something out to do with that. I mean, you could maybe talk about I don't know who. I honestly don't know who makes those. I never looked into it to see what their background is, what their motivation is. Right. It might be good just to talk about them in general, or you can use it. Hey, how about this? I actually honestly just thought of this because I remember when that started coming out. Like, he had little buttons. The website had little buttons, so you could link to each fallacy. Like, if you could put it in a Facebook thread, you could say your fallacy is argument from authority or whatever. But a lot of bad skeptics kind of use those things as cudgels. They'll say, oh, it's argument from authority, case closed. I don't want to hear from you anymore. You could write something saying this is really useful, but at the same time, you don't want to substitute it for actual reasoning and argument. That's a good angle.
Using logical fallacies and not being a dick about it.
Yeah. Not using them as a crutch.
Right. Yeah, because it's
a way to use this, but you might be using it wrong.
It's good to know what they are, so you can identify them when they're being used against you. And then it makes it easier to counter. Because if you know if someone is putting up a red herring, you can say, all right, I know what you're doing. You're trying to distract from the actual argument. You're putting this out here. Has nothing to do with what we're fucking talking about. Mm-hmm. So let's bring it back. And like, I know my wife has laughed a bunch of times when she sees that because I've used that. Not actually saying you're throwing me a red herring, but saying, hey, that's nice what you just said, but has nothing to do with the topic we're talking about. Are we done talking about this topic and we're moving on to another one? What are we doing here? Decide.
So here's my fully formulated reverse pitch that I just put together in my head. So it acts as a way to promote this guy's stuff, which I think is good. I always want to help the people who are doing good stuff. But you can also say, hey, are you trying to have an argument? Are you trying to win an argument with somebody? I don't like the word win, but we can work with that. Use this, but don't rely on it. That's the headline.
Okay. Use this, but don't rely on it. That's actually pretty good. I like that. I think I can work with that.
Wait, I'm not done. I got so many more ideas.
Oh, wait.
You see, hey, everybody who's watching, you see how easy this is? You think you don't have an idea? Just talk to me. I've said this to so many people recently. I was like, for AIPT, for all the other stuff that goes on the site, we have a Discord, and all the writers are in Discord, all the editors are in Discord. Every month we have an editors meeting on Zoom. And I always say, that's why we talk it out. Like, if there's one good thing to come out of the pandemic, it's the normalization of this kind of video communication.
Yeah.
Because it's like we always used to do so much through text, but now we need that human element because we're not getting it anywhere else. And it's just like, I guess I'm a writer. I'm a better editor than I am a writer, but I guess I'm a writer. So I'm kind of betraying myself when I say it's so much easier just to talk to somebody. It's like talk it out. You talk it out and you're going to figure it out.
Look, I get that because I can write, and that's why I write so much. That's why I talk a lot when I write, because when you're writing it out, you have to think from the reader's point of view, like their perspective. They're reading this, and I read my work and say, okay, well, I got to this paragraph, and you mentioned this term. What does that mean? And that's in my head. I'm like, all right, I have to explain what this term means because it's not common. People might not know what it is. Or if I use a tool, or if I use a device or something, I have to explain it. And it's much easier if we're talking like this. I can explain something better to you within 10 seconds rather than an entire paragraph. Hey, I'm not stopping you.
That's not enough.
That's not enough. This is a bar, man.
That'll do.
We'll have a last call. So, yeah, I totally get it because there's and I do enjoy talking to people because you cannot transfer emotion or context sometimes with just words written on a page. You can't, or on a screen.
I was very anti-emoji when that whole thing started. Anti-emoticon, like the old fart that I am.
Right.
But man, it helps. I mean, text is hard to discern. So having that little bit of context alongside of it helps. And here's I talked about, 2020 was kind of a rough year for everybody. I started going to, and I swear this isn't the alcohol talking. I say this to everyone like an idiot. I started going to therapy last year, and my therapist knew pretty straight away that I was on the spectrum. And apparently everyone else knew, but I was like, huh? So social cues are not my forte. And it's so like talking in text, talking on the phone. I mean, everybody is kind of hamstrung doing that. Imagine what it's like for me. So seeing somebody face to face, it's a little bit of a leg up. It helps me get to almost normal.
Right. I agree. It's nice because I do the show, which lets me interact with people. Sometimes I don't have a guest, so it's basically me just talking to everyone that's in the chat room who graciously they watch me, which I love. I don't understand why, because I don't think I'm funny or anything, but they join me every Friday night, which is great. Makes me feel good. I feel nice. But I like having a guest because we can talk like this. Saturday nights, I've been doing another show with two other guys. Same thing. I get to talk to them, see them. I see their faces, and I can see the emotion on their face, whether they're trying to be sincere or if they're like, no, fuck no, that's wrong, and this is why. When they're intense like that, I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, whenever we can get in person, I would much rather do like a lecture where I can talk to a crowd and look at everyone's faces, and because then you can determine, you can see in their faces like they're not sure what I'm talking about, and I can stop and say, because I have no problem. I'm not one of these like uppity guys that are like, I have my rehearsed lecture and that's it.
And that's one of the things, again, just from my journalism training. I learned that when email started being a thing, like journalists, there was a big divide. There was a big argument in journalism of, can you trust anything that anyone sends you through email? Because you don't know who sent that. Their name is on it, but somebody else could have sat down at their computer. You don't know where that's coming from. And there's still a higher, and I mean, to this day, if I do an email interview with someone, I will state that explicitly in the article, that this information came from email, because, I mean, we're not too concerned about the provenance of the information at this point. But at the same time, you're sitting down, if you're the interview subject, you're sitting down and doing it on your own time, choosing your words carefully. If you're a writer, you're writing it. You're writing the shit out of it, and you're not, so the hierarchy in journalism is still in person, because you can get those social cues. They might tell you something and then get a little nervous and kind of squirm in their chair a little bit. And that lets you know maybe they're not being totally honest, and you can kind of redirect the interview that way.
Yep.
And, when I interview comic book people, that's not so much of a concern. It's like all the comic book people want to do email interviews, and the journalist in me is like, but at the same time, I understand they're busy, and I'm not trying to catch them on anything. So, all right, whatever.
Right.
But speaking of that, I kind of want to go through, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
People ask me, like I'm sure people watching, and probably you, are wondering, like, all right, well, skepticism in pop culture, what the hell does that really mean? So
I was wondering that.
So the thing I say is, we do not only skepticism in pop culture, but skepticism of pop culture. So I just kind of pulled up, if you go to, get back to the name thing for a second. So like you said, the site started out being Adventures in Poor Taste. And then we went to AIPT Comics, because comics is still mostly what we do. I think we still have more comic book reviews every Wednesday, that's New Comic Book Day, than anybody else on the planet, because a lot of websites have moved away from comics because it's just not profitable. You get more clicks talking about movies and whatever else. But again, we're an independent site and we do what we like. So who cares? Fuck you. We're going to do what we want to do. And then, so now, but the bottom line is, now we're just AIPT. No exclamation point. No, just block letters like IGN. Think IGN, except we're AIPT and we're better.
Think of this, but we're something different. We're different letters.
We're the better IGN. Put that on the fucking masthead.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers to that.
Oh, yeah.
So if you go to AIPTcomics.com, you'll see a science drop-down menu. And I have a whole category just for skepticism. So I actually just clicked on skepticism, and I'm going to just look at what's there right now. So like I said, there's the review of On the Trail of UFOs. There's the review of the book about Andrew Wakefield.
Right.
And then there's an article I am so happy about. Mitch, the guy who does our Skeptic Camp. I did this. This is the skepticism of pop culture thing that I was talking about. I created this column idea called The Critical Angle for just that purpose. It's where you look at an argument in pop culture that people, it's circular. It just goes on and on. Like think about think about the reason the Guinness Book of World Records was founded. It was to solve those arguments. Like, oh, who could lift the most weight? Well, here it is. Here's your answer. So this is taking a pop culture argument and putting data and investigation to it, like you do with a UFO case or a ghost case, but doing it with a pop culture argument. And Mitch did this article called did Douglas Adams predict the internet? Because a lot of people, this was news to me, honestly. A lot of people say that because of the Hitchhiker's Guide is kind of like Wikipedia in a way. Apparently, it's updated.
Okay.
But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, of course, is what I mean. But so Mitch is a software developer and a huge Douglas Adams super fan. So he actually pitched this to me. I said, hey, does anybody want to write anything for Skepticism Month? And he was like, how about this? And I was like, that is fucking perfect. Thank you so much. And he used his expertise in both of those areas to come to a conclusion and say, well, you know, he might have predicted this. He might have predicted that. The big claim, that's kind of dubious. Go read the article. It's amazing. You'll learn about the internet. You'll learn about Douglas Adams. You'll learn about Hitchhiker's Guide. It's amazing. And that's the skepticism of pop culture.
I just posted the link to that article.
Yeah, thank you. That's good.
Yeah.
Placebos for Pets book review. Who knew? Who knew that I had gotten that far? That vets were prescribing alternative medicine for pets. How awful is that?
You know what's bad? It doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. And I've seen. What have I seen? I've seen what's it? Reiki for pets. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you?
It kind of, do you feel that tightness in your chest that I do right now? It's like it's bad enough when you're selling this to gullible people, and I shouldn't say that because we're all gullible at different points in our lives. But like the pets can't stick up for themselves. Like they're depending on you to defend them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so angering. And then the thing that kicks Skepticism Month off on Monday. Craig Foster, psychologist who writes for SI and does all kinds of cool things. He did this. Oh, you'll like this. He did an article about stormtroopers and how they're like anecdotes.
Yes, I read that.
Saw that? It doesn't matter how many stormtroopers you throw at a problem; they're not going to be effective.
I love that. I read that like,
how great is that? How great is that?
Awesome. That is awesome. I loved it.
And then I've got an article from Ben about the women-only screenings of Wonder Woman at the Alamo Draft House.
Yeah.
Turns out it didn't happen because it's illegal. But hey, it sold tickets. So again, that's the skepticism of pop culture.
Right.
Thing. We've got tons of book reviews, and this is if you haven't seen this comic, now I don't know, not everyone is into comics, but there's a comic coming out now from Image, which is like the number 3 publisher, the top indie comic publisher in the country, called Department of Truth. And it is about conspiracy theories. And I'm not going to give away the central twist, the conceit. But it's very important that this government organization, the Department of Truth, combats conspiracy theories because very bad things will happen if they don't. It's written by James Tynion IV, who is writing Batman right now. But he's very prolific. He does lots of stuff. And he deep dives basically onto a different conspiracy every issue and kind of explains in the exposition of the issue as the characters are going about their business what these conspiracy believers actually think. And spoiler, I've got an interview coming up with him. He's one of the biggest comic writers in the world right now. And I talked to him about this concept. I think it's going to get published towards the end of the month because I'm going to try to do more about each issue before that. Okay. But he's kind of like us. I mean, he was into all the weird shit when he was a kid. And then he kind of fell out of it, but still kind of was aware of it. And, this book has been in the works for a couple of years. And imagine his reaction as this book was coming out. And then all of a sudden, January 6th happens at the Capitol building.
Yeah.
And I asked him point blank, I said, the research you've done, and you saw people on January 6th invading that building wearing QAnon shirts, what was your reaction? And you're going to have to wait to see.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of things we do. I wrote a whole article when Randy died about why that matters.
Okay.
Spoiler on that is that we have to forge our own path going forward and not rely on the old guard, but I'm a broken record on that.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. So go click on the skepticism tab and you'll see all kinds of cool things.
Right. Yeah, you just go to the website. I posted it a bunch of times, a bunch of different articles. I just posted the one about the stormtroopers, which I did share onto my pages because I loved it. I mean,
Rob's yelling at me. Rob had this great idea, which was something that I've wanted to do for a while, but he actually made it happen. I think it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen Monday or Tuesday. There's a new Matrix movie coming out this year for reasons nobody understands.
I know.
So he wanted to write about is the world a simulation and how do we know? Which is a good topic, and I think it's gonna be good to dig into that. I'm just kind of looking at my notes here, seeing what else is coming up. Got some more book reviews. Like I said, I'm going to finish my series on Project Blue Book, the TV show. That's going to be, I think that's going to be a great resource when that's all done. And, you know, it's like I said, it's going to be addressing every single episode, every single case they talked about. So if anybody watched that show and said, "Hey, I heard about that. That was how do you explain that?" Just direct them towards us, and we'll hook them up.
There you go.
Richard Wiseman has a comic book about skepticism.
I know.
Did you know that?
I know.
Celestia Ward, your buddy from the Squaring the Strange podcast, she's going to review an issue next week, and then the following week, if all goes to plan, she's going to have an interview with Dr. Wiseman about the whole shindig. Very special. We always have a very special post on Darwin Day, the 12th. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's coming up on Friday. You'll never see it coming. You want to be there for it. It's going to be amazing. There's a skeptical comic book called After the Gold Rush, written by a guy named Miles Greb. I'm going to have my final director's commentary sort of thing with him where I talk to him about every issue. He's got 5 issues out so far. All of that is going to be in the back matter of the collected edition, which is coming out either later this year or early next year. So that's still coming up.
Cool.
What else have we got? Pack hunting by raptors in Jurassic Park. Did you realize that there really isn't good evidence for pack hunting and raptors? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
But so one of my guys is big dinosaur guy, and he told me this, and I was like, write it up. So he's going to talk about the paleontological evidence for velociraptor pack hunting or lack thereof. Because I mean, we all know the Dilophosaurus with the frill and the venom, that wasn't real. We all know that, but we all just kind of accepted the pack hunting because it made sense.
Right.
All right. So there's that. I mean, and there's all kinds of cool stuff coming. Palmer's going to be next week. The Hocus Pocus review, that's Wiseman's thing. That's going to be. I have this great one by Michael Compton, who writes for me once or twice a year. He used to be a CFI guy, about Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and how he almost certainly killed himself, and how even the easiest conspiracy to believe still probably isn't true.
Oh my goodness, that's great. I mean, I this is what I love. I love it because it's these articles are fun. I mean, not all. Some of them are definitely, they take a serious tone, but I mean, they're fun because they're different directions that you're not used to. Like,
and I tell people, like, you know, if you know somebody who isn't going to read a CSI article, link them to this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even though I try to make them, like, my articles entertaining, and certainly Ben does help with that when he edits them. but it comes down to it's an investigation. So other things that I've written, like for you, like the one about the ghosts in Star Wars, Force Ghost. Yeah,
that was another one. That was another one that was specifically for you. No one else could have written that.
I had so much fun with that because it was like, all right, Force Ghost. How the fuck am I going to write about this? But it took me in different directions. So, and it was great to look at ghosts and pop culture and how they relate to what people really believe in the real world. So
the kernel of that one was suddenly Force Ghosts became able to interact with physical objects, which I guess they couldn't have done before.
While still not interacting with other physical objects.
Yeah. Like a fucking poltergeist or something.
So specifically the scene with in The Rise of Skywalker when Luke catches the lightsaber, Rey throws it into the burning TIE fighter, and his Force Ghost catches it. So he catches a lightsaber, but he's standing within the flames. So what's that about? But yeah, I do love it because it's so much fun. It's a different kind of take. It forces me to change my style and look at something like, all right, I would probably not write about this on my own. But okay, all right, he asked me to, and like when you asked me to this time, I was like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know. He didn't give me an idea. He didn't give me something. What the fuck am I going to write about? I don't know. But so I'm glad we had this talk because this was actually a gift from one of my viewers. And actually he was a friend of mine before I did this show. So it
is a great idea. And like I said, I love that guy does what he does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to not use it as a crutch. And we need to not just beat people over the head with that stuff.
Right. So where can we're winding down. We're actually at the 2-hour mark. So we're good to go. Where can people follow you?
So, I mean, the most important thing is honestly bookmark the website. Whether it's AIPTcomics.com or AIPTcomics.com/science. Like I said, we're doing a new article every day this month about skepticism. And I'm going to try my best to get back to 2 articles a week going forward. And at AIPT Science on Twitter. You can follow my personal account that I don't use that much, so I'm not even going to tell you, so don't worry about that.
There you go.
Hey, New York City Skeptics, look them up. They're kind of cool.
They're kind of cool.
I believe it's NYC Skeptics at NYC Skeptics on Twitter, nycskeptics.org. Join the meetup. That's where we do most of our talking because, for whatever reason, that's ingrained as our main social communication. So search New York City Skeptics Meetup if you're in the area. Actually, even if you're not in the area, because I think going forward, we're going to be doing, even when things get back to quote unquote normal, I think we're still going to be doing Zoom stuff alongside our in-person stuff. So
cool.
Just go ahead and join it. You'll probably, coming up the 13th, Saturday. So not this Saturday, but a week from tomorrow, we're going to have Massimo Pigliucci, who's an old-time New York City Skeptics guy.
Yeah.
He actually teaches a course on the philosophy of Star Trek. So we are going to watch an episode of Star Trek with him and then talk about the philosophy in it. So that's coming up on Saturday, February 12th. Google New York City Skeptics Meetup. nycskeptics.org. I think it's on the main website now too. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a ton of fun.
I'm putting it on. That's Friday night. Okay.
It's actually a Saturday, so I might have a date.
So Friday or February 13th?
It must be the 13th, yeah.
13th is Saturday, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Saturday. Cool. I'm putting it down because I want to attend that. That sounds like fun.
And Rob wants more promotion. He's done 2 group articles for AIPT Science.
Oh my God, Rob! I will have you on the show at a later date.
Do not miss his article on matrix simulation. Maybe Tuesday.
Cool. All right. Whew. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. This is so much fun. And you said you don't always have a guest. I mean, if you want me to come on for half an hour someday, just let me know and we'll bullshit and drink liquor and it'll be fun.
That's all. When I don't have a guest, I usually have either a theme that I'm going, like the one show I did, Ouija boards. I just talked about Ouija boards and the history of it and my experiments with it and stuff. If not, I do what I call open mic night, because I try to stay with the bar theme and do karaoke. You can ask whatever questions you want. It's general. It's just me and we talk. But I invite people to come on. Like if you have a question and you want to get into it a little bit more, I always offer for people to come on. And I think there's only been like 3 people that have taken it up. I don't know if they're just camera shy or sometimes they
keyboard warriors.
Once in a while, it's like that. I do want, maybe you can address this in a couple minutes before you leave.
I got nothing but time, man. So.
Okay, so C, which is I believe Kathy, asked, conspiracy believers don't accept fact checkers. So how to reach? So how do we reach them? And I know I'll preface this with I had Mick West on a while back, and he was great with his advice with dealing with that, because that's what he does.
Well, that's my answer. Mick West is my answer. If you go to I'm not even going to self-promote on this. Go to Amazon, buy "Escaping the Rabbit Hole" by Mick West. It is the Bible on this sort of thing. There is a review of it on AIPT.
There we go.
And I need to shout out Kendra Reed wrote that review. She's my right-hand man on AIPT Science. She runs the Twitter. I'd be lost without her. She does so many contributions.
Awesome.
She's so great. If you ever meet her, see her online, give her a high five. So you can read the review on AIPT, Escaping the Rabbit Hole by Mick West.
Yes.
But honestly, you don't need to. Just go buy it.
Go buy it. Go buy the book. And yes, as Rob pointed out, he does have a podcast too, which is great to watch and learn, because you see people that have gone down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole deep, and you learn how they got themselves out.
Did anybody go to the CSI thing last night with Leanne Lord? It was all about QAnon, and there was, to my knowledge, a new person to our community, Stephanie Kemmerer, Kemmerer. I think they said she's got the cover article in the newest article of a newest issue of Skeptical Inquirer. I haven't gotten it yet. Okay. I don't think.
Awesome.
I don't check the mail often, but I think that's on their YouTube now. Skeptical Inquirer's YouTube. Awesome. So go check that out if you want to learn more about QAnon and see a new voice in our tight-knit.
Yes.
And I say that tight-knit community. I say that with no sarcasm or reticence at all. Our tight-knit, very similar community.
We're like, from my perspective, we're tight, but I branch out. I'm not exclusive. I don't do the clique thing. I do my own thing. I'm my own clique. I do what I want, when I want, how I want. And if you like it, great. If you don't, okay.
I mean, that was
all right.
I hate being evasive. To be very explicit, she's not an old dude.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. Anytime, man. Like fun. I said, I mean,
I love it.
I always say whenever somebody tries to big time you in the skepticism community, I just don't understand it, because nobody's getting rich off this. We're all doing this, I would think, to make the world a better place. So I mean, we're all in this together. So I want to help you. You want to help me. anytime I can help. Anybody in the chat, anytime I can help you with anything. You want me to edit something you wrote? I'll fucking do it. Just find me.
Oh, all right. So, all right, I'm going to put you in the background for just a minute or two. So don't go away yet, because I want to talk to you after the show, and I'm just going to do my final announcements, and we'll end this. So, all right, I'm going to mute you and put you in the background a little bit. There we go. Okay, so thank you, everyone. That was Russ Dobler. Awesome guy. Met him a couple years back at SciCon, and it was great. We've been friends ever since, and I've been able to talk to his group a couple times, and it's just nice guy and great website. Check out the website. I put it in the chat room a few times, so check it out, because it's got everything. If you like this stuff, you're going to like a lot of other stuff on that site. So check it out. But for me, coming up, some of the things that I do have scheduled, March 18th, I will be on a podcast called Crossroads. It's on Blog Talk Radio, I believe. And then April 15th, I will be on another podcast called Full Spectrum Radio. Both of these are paranormal themed podcast. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of conversation comes. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So 3 conferences that have been scheduled for this year that have been rescheduled from last year and probably earlier this year. So we'll see if they happen. But June 3rd to 5th is Phenomenology. It's in Gettysburg. So I'm scheduled to be there as long as everything is safe. And I'm putting that out there because if things are not cleared for that kind of event, that I'm not going. That's the way it is. Second one is August 20th to the 22nd is the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is a great conference. I really hope that's there because it benefits Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors and kids with cancer. So it's always a great event. I love going there. And then September 25th is Para-Unity, and it's in Jersey, New Jersey for people outside of Philly area. I don't know. I don't know where I was going out with thought, but I don't know where it is exactly in Jersey, but it's in Jersey somewhere. You can look it up, Para-Unity. I'm going to be there just walking around. I don't have a booth at that one, but I'll be walking around annoying ghost hunters and psychics like I always do. So with that said, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I love the comments tonight. Not only about what was going on in the show, but when I mentioned about like people, I don't know why people tune in every night or every week, and you guys put some nice comments on. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate you guys showing up every Friday night, spending 2.5 hours with me, and talking and asking questions, and we all learn together. And that's the basic point of this show. Drinking. No, I mean learning, learning together, coming together, figuring out things, and talking. From different backgrounds, we come together and we talk over liquor and beer. So awesome, very cool. Tune in tomorrow night for 3 Tortured Souls, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. We're going to be talking about superstitions, which is cool. We're going to talk about a bunch of like common superstitions, because it was based on a couple episodes ago where the black cats came up in one of the questions, and we're going to be talking about our own superstitions and all kinds of stuff. So check that out, be part of the conversation. And we also drink. So there's a running theme here. So with that, I'm going to play my ending video as soon as I find it here. And I will wish you all a good weekend. Stay safe and never stop learning. I'll see you next week.